I am going over how to set up your printing station to screen print. And some of the supplies that you're going to need are a screen, a printing station. So what this printing station is made up of is a piece of melamine. And the reason why we use that is because it's very easy to clean off if ink gets on there. Installed here are also jiffy hinges, which are made specifically for screen printing. We also have a piece of mylar here. This mylar is 0.05 thickness, so it has a little bit of weight to it. We tape it here on the side, and because of the weight, it sits nice and flat and is less likely to crinkle and buckle. Other things we need are a squeegee. You want to make sure that your squeegee is at least 1 inch bigger on either side of your image. You want to make sure it's nice and clean. We also have a piece of wood here to rest your squeegee on. I like to keep the handle up and out of ink puddles so that your hands can stay clean, and then your prints will stay clean when you retrieve them. We have a spatula here for mixing our inks, and here's some ink. We only use water-based ink, so you want to make sure that when you are using it, that it's mixed really nicely and modified if it needs to be with retarder or transparent base. You just want to make sure that it's nice and fluid and not moldy or too chunky. We also have packaging tape and duct tape. And then rags, as you need them. Some people like to have a damp rag. And here is a nice jig that we use to hold up the screen in between printing. We just go like that, so it keeps the screen from coming down at our heads. This is optional. Okay, so the first thing we want to do after we have our screen exposed and ready to print is we want to identify any areas that are open where we don't want ink to go through. So we can see these areas right here are open. We don't want ink to go through there. And also as a preventative measure, we just always put tape around all 4 sides, even if it looks like it's nice and clear and covered, because we don't want ink to go through there accidentally. So I'm taking my packaging tape and I'm just placing tape over all 4 sides. Now, packaging tape, because it's so smooth and sleek, can be applied on the inside or the bottom, the outside of the screen, either way. You also just want to see if there's any little tiny pinholes anywhere that you might want to cover up with tape. Okay, now we take our mylar here, and you want to make sure that you have a piece that's a little bit bigger than your paper size, your image area. So here's my paper. This is bigger. I'm going to take duct tape here, and I'm going to tape on the side here that's going to have the mylar flip over to an area that will not be interrupted by all of this messy paint and squeegee, etc. So I'm going to take my duct tape here and make sure that I'm taping beyond where the mylar starts, all the way down to the end here, past where it ends. So it's nice and supported. And then I'm going to just cut right along the acetate edges here so that this Mylar can flip back and forth with ease. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is take my ink and spread it at the very top here. Make sure there's plenty. And then take the squeegee and holding it at about a 45-degree angle. It's hard to show on camera, but basically you want to make sure that it's about that angle. So what we're doing is paying attention to this really sharp edge, making contact with the table. I can feel the table underneath here. That's what we're looking for. So we're not trying to pull this with all of our might, because what ends up happening is this sort of flattens out and planes out. We want to make sure that that sharp edge is making contact. And then we drag it across. So the very first print is printed right onto the Mylar. I'm going to lift it and flood it back and make sure that my screen is elevated. And the flood is there so that it's depositing ink for your next print. It also keeps the screen lubricated so that it won't dry out as quickly. This is water-based ink, which means that it will dry quickly. So here we have our print. This is an indication of where this screen image will fall down onto the table. We can see that there's an area here that didn't get covered with tape, so I can go ahead and fix that before we go onto our good paper. Just like that. Okay, now with the imagery printed on the Mylar, we can take our paper and place it exactly where we'd like it to fall. So let's say that's how I want it to print, that's how I want it to print. And especially if I already have a layer printed onto my paper, it makes it really easy for me to be able to line up the two printed layers. So let's say that's exactly the way I want it to be. I just move this acetate out of the way, pull my screen down, and print. There we go. Beautiful. Because this is melamine, I can wipe this off very easily. Some people feel like they should put newsprint down to avoid this from happening, but it's so much easier to just wipe it off of the table than to have messy newsprint to have to replace constantly. So I'm just going to spray a little bit of glass cleaner or simple green, any kind of cleaner, to wipe that off. Okay, so in between prints, I just printed that one. I'm going to again flood it. So you always flood in between prints. I'm going to take my next piece of paper, decide where I want it printed, and print again. Beautiful. Now, let's say we're all done with printing. What I can do to quickly clean this up, and this is a great method also if you have decided that the color that you're printing with is not the color that you are happy with after all. A quick way to clean your screen is to just scoop out as much of the ink as you can. I usually like to use cardboard chips. I just don't have them with me right now. Okay, and then glass cleaner, which is just Windex basically and some water. I'm just going to generously spray this onto my screen. And then with rags, wipe it out. So this makes it so much easier when you're at home and you don't have a big washout screen. You can just use rags and some glass cleaner and clean it out this way. And then just let that dry.